This is the MT760 mouse from Rapoo. Not only does it look exactly like the Logitech MX Master 3S, but it seems to offer everything it has for half the price. After using this mouse for about 2 weeks, I can say this. If it looks too good to be true, probably is. But don't write off this mouse completely because there's a decent mouse in there. I think that it's marred by a number of technical issues that the average consumer cannot overlook. Let's dive in. So this mouse comes in at around $50, and I think that's a fair price considering the build quality and what it actually offers. Granted, there are a lot of options in this price range that offer similar features, but I think this one interested me the most, especially once I looked through the rave reviews it was getting on Amazon and the fact that they were inspired by Logitech's design. So if you decided to pick up one of these, here's what you're going to get in the box. You're going to get the mouse itself, a USB-C charging cable, which is about 1.2 meters in length. I think that's a decent length to have. You get 2 USB-C receivers. I think that's generous in case you were to miss one. And you get the standard paperwork. That's pretty much it. Now, as a productivity mouse, I usually expect these to have multi-device connectivity. This one does have that, and it's great. As a matter of fact, it actually takes it a step further. It supports up to 4 devices. It has 3 dedicated Bluetooth connections and 1 2.4 gigahertz connection. This will be through its USB-C receiver. Now, this right here touches on one of the reasons why this mouse isn't something I would recommend. Typically, 2.4 gigahertz connection over a receiver is usually more stable than a Bluetooth connection. However, my experience with the connectivity of the mouse was less than ideal. I kept on experiencing connection drops. I'm talking within like a 1 hour period, it dropped 4 to 5 times. And I think that's intrusive enough for you to notice and say, hey, this is a less than ideal experience. Now, they also say that this has 11 programmable buttons. It's very similar to how you would do this on your Logitech MX Master series mouse as well. Now, this is something I generally don't ever use, so I didn't really see the need to test it per se, but from what I've seen from the marketing materials, it seems to work in a similar way. I would imagine the Logitech one's better because they usually have a deeper software integration over time, but take with that what you will. Now, this mouse features an 800 milliamp battery, which I think is okay for this type of productivity mouse. They say this can last you at least 90 days on one charge, which I think is good. Unfortunately, I had this for only 2 weeks, so this wasn't something that I could fully test, but suffice to say that throughout my 2-week period, I didn't have to recharge the mouse, so I guess that's good. Now, if you look just underneath the scroll wheel, you're going to see a small button. This button allows you to cycle through the DPI settings on the mouse itself. You're basically increasing the resolution as you cycle through. It will change colors as you progress through the settings, so you kind of have to memorize what colors work for each setting. What this will translate to when you're actually using the mouse is like if you've already had your mouse at a certain sensitivity in Windows, as you increase this, your cursor will travel a further distance in the same distance you would have moved it in real life. So this would also impact precision if you're into like first-person shooters or playing games with your mouse. So if this was a feature that was important to you, I guess you'd be glad to know that this mouse supports that feature. So let's talk about the aesthetics real quick here. So it really looks nice. I like the way it's designed, but that's also because it's very, very clear where they got their inspiration from. I'm using that word very loosely here. You almost couldn't tell the difference if you just glanced at it. Apart from the actual Rapoo branding, at a quick glance looks exactly like the MX Master series mouse. And because of that, it is a comfortable mouse to use. Putting aside all the extreme similarities, they've actually done a good job in terms of the build quality. It seems like they've used silicone in some areas, high quality plastic in others. For the most part, the mouse is made up of plastic and it shows in the weight. This is considerably lighter than the Logitech MX Master series. And I think that improves the overall experience when you're moving the mouse on the desk because you don't have to use as much force. I generally like mice that are way lighter, but I've kind of adjusted to the weight of the Logitech over time. But I think people would prefer something that weighs lighter. And one thing I will point out is it seems to glide better across surfaces compared to the Logitech, coupled with the fact that it weighs lighter. So moving this really does feel like a breeze, pun intended. Now, this also has a forward and back button just underneath the side scroll wheel. Now, if you've used the MX series before, the placement on here might seem a little bit off in terms of its measurements. Something doesn't just feel right with how they've placed them. Now, focusing more on the mouse wheel, I'd say it's okay. It's just how you would expect a normal mouse wheel to behave. I will say it's a little bit soft in terms of how the notches feel. I think it's thematically in line with the fact that the entire mouse itself is supposed to be more of a quiet mouse. So if you rapidly scroll through the mouse wheel, it's not going to sound loud. Now, speaking about the left and right clicking experience of this mouse, the one thing I did note is the fact that the key travel is a little bit more than I would expect. So most mice out there have tight key travel, so it feels very snappy and responsive. This mouse feels a little bit more squishy. This might not be a big deal for most, but I think if that's something that's off-putting right out the bat, you would want to know that before you commit to this mouse. Now, moving on to connectivity here, wherein lies the deal breaker we're talking about here is I can test every other thing, but if in an hour I'm having up to like 4 to 5 dropped connections, that's just not a mouse I can recommend. This is the main reason why I eventually had to return the mouse. I will say overall, the connectivity was much more stable when I was using Bluetooth compared to 2.4 gigahertz, which is supposed to be the reverse. But for that reason, I'm out, man. In conclusion, what are my final thoughts about this mouse? Here's what I'll say. If you've used the MX Master series before, this mouse is going to feel like a significant downgrade for you. If you've never used the MX Master series, or this is the first time that you are using a mouse that's kind of like more geared towards productivity, and you don't want to spend up to like $100 to get the MX Master 3S, what I would recommend is that you got the MX Master 2S. It's been around for a couple of years at this point. Depending on when it's on sale, you can get this for either the same price of the Rapoo or maybe $10 more. I want to say you can get the J Labs mouse as well. That could also be a better alternative to this, but I've not tested that one. I'm actually in the process of getting that mouse and testing it within a week or two. If I were to suggest what will make this mouse way better, reduce the key travel, make sure the connections are much more stable. So hopefully this video helped you to make a better purchasing decision, and until the next one, stay safe and have a great time.